Hi, Dad. I've been down fussing with the tractor, uh, every other day or so, just to do little improvements on it and whatnot, and um, re-grease the various fittings that I greased when I first got it. It was very dry. Everything was very dry. So, in, in in addition to that, I installed the little canopy that came with it, which is fun. But I've done some. I got a new shift boot there. The old one was cracked and terrible and awful, and I filled the steering mechanism reservoir and just little things. Just doing minor repairs with liquid electrical tape in here. Um, Replacing some hose clamps and whatnot up here. Nothing that needed fixing, just stuff that needed sort of attention. This oil line right here was leaking. This goes up to the uh, oil gauge in the dash. And so I came across an older technology that I thought you would appreciate. This is a 1979 tractor and 3-cylinder diesel, and here are the fuel lines that go into the cylinders. And once the fuel is injected into the cylinder, the excess fuel is recovered at the top of each cylinder head and travels back through this line and back up into the tank. That's very common on all diesels. And that allows the diesel motor to put a lot of pressure here in response to what the engine needs, pressure and volume, and not worry about excess fuel because it all gets recovered here. So you might have noticed an interesting contraption within this circuit, and that is this little tank right here. And it looks like a little tank, and that is in fact what it is. And as the diesel fuel is recovered back from the top of these cylinders, ooh, that was weird. As the diesel fuel is recovered from the top of these cylinders, travels back to the tank, it fills this reservoir with fresh diesel all the time. Gas goes back to the tank. So when you shut the tractor off, a small amount, I'd say 50 milliliters or so, of diesel remains in this little tub here and in this line. And it feeds down to this contraption here that is bolted into the intake manifold, which is right here. So the air comes from the filter into the engine through this big hose. And right here, there's an interesting little gadget. And this gadget is a cold weather starting assist device. And at one time it was wired right here to the key. And if you turned the key backwards, it would, this is before you start it up in cold weather, you turn the key backwards, it would energize this device, and it would cause a coil within the device to begin to glow. That glowing coil would heat up a thermocouple, which would release a valve up in this area. And a small amount of diesel fuel from this well would drip onto the coil and catch fire. And you would you'd be able to ignite a small fire in the intake manifold here. And once you had a small fire going, you then would turn the key in the opposite direction and start the tractor. You can also use this at the top of the rocker arm assembly for decompression, but I don't mess with that. So it allowed you to start a fire in here, and then that would pull that superheated air into the cylinder head and start the tractor. That's all been disconnected, and you don't need it now. You don't need it. I don't do super cold weather starts, and it obviously hasn't worked in many, many years. You just turn the tractor on and give it gas, and the starter motor starts it up. But that's a little gadget from a bygone era, when the average homeowner was entrusted to know enough about what they were doing to be able to set their motor on fire as a normal part of their startup procedure. So I thought you'd find that interesting. Love you, Dad.